James Rosengrant was born on February 9, 1943. He served in the Bay of Pigs invasion in the Cuban Missile Crisis in the Navy. His highest rank was Petty Officer 3rd Class. Rosengrant was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania, which was the nearest hospital to his hometown in Tunkhannock, Pennsylvania. His mother and father lived next door to his grandparents, so growing up as a child, he spent most of his time with them. He did not work before his service due to the fact that he was a senior in high school when he joined. He was 17 years old when he enlisted into the Navy. His uncle and his neighbor both were in the Navy at the time, which helped to influence his decision in joining. He was sent to the Great Lakes Training Center in Chicago, Illinois. He went to basic training during his Easter break in high school and took an extra week of school off for training. There were about 30 young men in the same situation as him, so they learned about teamwork and how to perform their duties together. He was only there for 2 weeks and had several drill sergeants.
Each one of them teaching us a different skill.
He also went through coxswain training, which was in charge of the lifeboats and Liberty launches. He took sailors back and forth from port to the ship when they had liberty and also got to be the helmsman of the ship. Adjusting to military life for Rosengrant was quite easy because he had learned that if a sailor paid attention and performed his duties he was supposed to, it was pretty easy. Also, it was the first time that he was away from home, which played an emotional experience. He was never away from home before, and he was 17 years old. He served in Norfolk, Virginia on the USS Enterprise, which at the same time was the only nuclear aircraft carrier in the world. It was, in his perspective, the length of 3 football fields. Rosengrant's experience in the Bay of Pigs invasion is that he really didn't realize what was happening. After he got out of the service, he thought,
"Oh, this was really, I was part of this, but as I was there, we just performed our duties as normal. My duties did not change because of the Bay of Pigs or because of the missile crisis blockade."
His duties during the invasion was what they called a sponson. This is like a canopy on a balcony or house, and he took care of sponson number 3. It was his job to take care of everything that happened on that piece of the ship. He also had a lifeboat that he was in charge of making sure the lifeboat was properly maintained at all times. When they were in port, he helped to load and unload the ship from his sponson, which brought supplies up to the ship. He believed that he performed his jobs well because he never got into any trouble or discipline, and he was recommended for reenlistment. At times he thought that some of them were quite hard, just like any other job, but as he learned his jobs, it became easier. When he first started, there were some pretty difficult tasks, but as he performed them, they got much easier. Working alongside of 3 other people also helped him to perform his duties. They were in the same predicament that he was in, and they learned to work together. They did their tasks and got along very well. There were 2 friends in particular that he was close with, and their names were Roger Moore and Paul Bacon. Paul lived in Boston, and Roger lived in Ohio. He doesn't keep in touch with them, but he wishes that he did. They were in the same division together when they met, and they worked together and went on liberty. He said that it seemed like the 3 of them were always together no matter what they did. Rosengrant didn't keep in touch with his friends and family back home much because the only way he could was through mail. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, however, he didn't keep in touch with them at all because they were out on station in the ocean. The mail would be flown in by aircraft but would only fly in maybe once a week. They played a lot of cribbage and just hung out and prepared for their next advancement in ranking. They helped each other prepare for that so they were ready. Rosengrant was then a part of another major part of history. To him, the Cuban Missile Crisis was nothing out of the ordinary. He performed his duties as always, and at the time, they knew they were down on a blockade, but they were down there mainly for their aircraft. They were flying, supporting the aircraft, and tracking down the U-2 planes from Florida flying over Cuba to take pictures of the missile crisis. At the time, he didn't think anything of serving on the USS Enterprise, but he is very proud of it today. The ship was the first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier in the United States Navy. It had 8 nuclear reactors on it, and at the time, it was also the fastest ship in the U.S. Navy.
Actually, the ship was starting to be built in 1958. It was not completed until 1960. and it was first launched into the water in 1960. And it was commissioned in 1961, which I was on board when the ship was commissioned. So it has, well, the original cost was $451 million to build it. It had over 200,000 horsepower, which was pretty powerful. The top speed was over 30 knots, which was classified at the time that I was on it. You really couldn't tell anybody how fast it was. And I believe I told you before, it was 3 football fields long.
The Cuban Missile Crisis were the same as the Bay of Pigs invasion. He performed his jobs with 4 or 5 other people, and they worked together all the time. They worked around 8 to 9 hours a day, and at times had to perform watch. It was a 4-hour watch that they did, and if they had night watch, it was from midnight to 4 a.m., and they got to sleep in an extra 2 hours in the morning. He didn't get really tired from his jobs throughout the days because there wasn't anything strenuous they had to do.
No, I had the same emotions on either one. At the time, I didn't give it much thought.
They just had their duties to perform, and when they were done, they were off for the day. They performed similar activities such as cards and helping each other in their advancement rating. When the Cuban Missile Crisis ended, Rosengrant was stationed in the Atlantic Ocean and then went back to their home base, Norfolk, Virginia. Then they all got to leave for the holidays for a couple of days. When the war ended, he didn't actually know. They were never told that they were at war or anything like that. They did know when they were at their general quarters, which was a preparatory stage towards war. He sailed home on the ship after the war was over, and when they got to port, they had buses that ran from their pier to Scranton. It took 12 hours to go back and forth, so he actually rode the bus back home and then back down to the port.
I guess I was pretty proud of what I accomplished, and that I could go off on my own and survive without some other father.
Bay of Pigs invasion had both a positive and negative effect on his life. The positive was seeing the government in action and taking part in the action. The negative was not knowing what he was doing his work for.
Always take what you hear or what they tell you you're there for and with a grain of salt, because they're not always true.
The effect on the Cuban Missile Crisis did not differ from the Bay of Pigs invasion. Even though the effects did not differ, his wartime experiences prepared him for life after the Navy and taught him to perform his jobs to the best of his ability. The life lessons affected him during the Cuban Missile Crisis by teaching him to work with all kinds of people, which impacts his life today. During his time of service, Rosengrant performed the same jobs in each conflict. He performed his duties as usual, whether he was in battle or not. He also learned about some of the activities that the government did, which included flying planes during the night and that the planes would come back with holes in the sides. When Rosengrant got out of the Navy, he was 23 years old. He took on many jobs after his service, such as picking up milk cans and working at a gas station. His work was influenced by his service in the Navy by doing his tasks to the best of his ability. He recalls that some of his favorite memories include seeing different sights and making new friends. Rosengrant believes that everyone should join the Navy and learn something from the experience. He advises that people should join the forces to see what the world is really like. Given the chance, Rosengrant would go back and re-enlist due to the lack of jobs in his area. If he wouldn't have enlisted, he wouldn't have gotten a very good job and would have just lived a life. He belongs to the VFW and American Legion and was never injured during war. Rosengrant feels proud to be a USA veteran and gets more proud as the years go by. He is glad he had the opportunity to serve his country.
I guess I lost maybe 3 years with my family, growing up with my mom and dad or whatever, but it was time to leave the nest anyway.